Ready to rock and roll.
All right, I'm going to clap us in. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Our Point Forensics podcast, Unallocated Space. The podcast is a live conversation about current issues and solutions within the digital forensic and incident response community. We're excited to learn with you about the space from industry-leading experts, passionate individuals supporting the DFIR community. And for those of you that don't know us and are just joining, we're a small business headquartered out of Tampa, Florida, and we focus on developing products and solutions for law enforcement, military, and beyond to make digital forensics more accessible. My name is Amy Moles. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Our Point Forensics, and I've been supporting the DFIR community for over the decade in defense contracting, as well as the intelligence community before making the leap to establish Our Point Forensics with Jared Ringberg. I'll hand it over to Jared.
Hey, thanks, Amy. My name is Jared. I supported cyber operations and digital forensics for the past 13 years. And today we're excited to introduce Jason Hogan, our guest for today. Jason Hogan is an Army Lieutenant Colonel with 22 years of experience. He earned a commission as an armor officer in 1999, was later nominated for NSA's Junior Officer Cryptologic Career Program, where he served in a variety of signals intelligence, cyberspace, and policy positions. He was forward deployed as the officer in charge of expeditionary access operations, and most recently supported the Cyberspace Operations Integrated Planning Element out of MacDill Air Force Base. Jason, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for sitting down with us. So can you tell us a little bit more about your background? I'm sure there's a lot of people earlier on in their careers that are interested how you went from an armor commission through all the way up through cyberspace.
Yeah, so I started off as a armor officer commissioned out of University of Washington in Seattle. Go Huskies. I had a degree in sociological deviance. Decided there really wasn't much to do with that besides going to law enforcement. So I joined the Army and was in a program. It's called branch detail. So they loan you out to combat arms for the first 4 years to get you a little experience being the receiver of information. And then got switched over to intelligence. I was a battalion intelligence officer, ran all intelligence operations in Mosul from 04-05, and then after that worked at the National Security Agency as a senior operations officer. So got to see some of that national level intelligence apparatus, which kind of piqued my interest, and went up to the National Security Agency, like you mentioned, did 5 years up there, varying jobs. And then when the Army stood up this new cyber branch in 2014, they decided to switch my branches again for me. It sent me to Texas and then Hawaii to stand up the Army cyber detachments in both those locations. And then when I was done suffering in Hawaii and San Antonio, they made it up for me by sending me to Tampa as consolation, so I can retire out of Tampa with every other 05 and 06 in the military and live in Tampa when I'm done.
That sounds really, really harsh. I can't believe they would do that to you.
We all make sacrifices for our country.
So for the people that are listening, Jason is with Our Point doing that DoD skills program. And we are so very proud to have you a part of our team and truly honored that you entrusted us to be a part of your journey exiting the military. That's 22 years is a really good chunk of time. Out of that whole experience, what was like your favorite, favorite memory or anything like that?
So first, it's been, I'm really thankful for Arc Point to bring me on and trust me both in learning and trying to contribute during Skill Bridge. For every military folks thinking about transitioning, make sure you do a Skill Bridge program because the civilian world is different than the military.
Is that something that they push, the Skills Bridge program? Or is that something you kind of have to be coached into?
So it is an opportunity they make sure everyone knows about. And it's just like any other opportunity, both civilian and military, it's what you make of it. There's some folks that just go through the motions. You probably don't get a lot out of it. Or they'll do a skill bridge with something they're familiar with. So my primary background is offensive and defensive cyber operations, traditional full spectrum cyber operations, didn't have a lot of experience with digital forensics. When this opportunity came along to learn more about digital forensics and how it translates into media exploitation and a bunch of other stuff, which I have done, It felt like good, uncomfortable push for this to be the skill bridge experience. To go back to your question, Amy, probably it's hard to pinpoint a specific experience. I will say that the thing that I take away from the military was the people. Whether the folks I deployed with, folks I've commanded, the people really made it worth getting up every day, doing the long hours, seeing them make the same sacrifices that you make, whether it's with the family time, deployments, just emotional and physical injuries. The people really made it worthwhile, made it worth coming back to, and seeing some of the younger folks are now, sergeant majors of the Army and senior leaders and commanders. And you knew them as a young specialist, and you're like, I don't know if I want to stay in. I'm going to go off and do these great things, and there's a lot to do in the military besides just, lie in the mud and shoot guns. And there's a lot of ways to give back to your country, even as like a military civilian too.
Yeah. So Jared and I were talking about this before. The cyber offensive and defensive operations that you were doing. How can you kind of describe to us like how the Army chooses a career path, or how you choose your career path in the Army? Because for myself, I have never served in the military, so I don't know how that works.
So I'll talk general first, then get into cyber, because it just went through a big transition on how we acquisition talent for the cyber branch. So generally speaking, when you go through your commissioning source, it could be West Point or ROTC, you put in which branches you're interested in. Branches being like, I want to be infantry or armor, or intel, signal, quartermaster, aviator, as long as your eyes aren't bad. And depending on academic scoring, your placement in your class, allocations, like how many they can bring in based on manpower analysis, you are assigned a branch out of your commissioning source. Then there are gates, periods throughout your career, usually at your 4-year mark and then 8-year mark. You can decide, hey, I want to put in maybe switch branches. Like we talked about, the Army maximizes a program called branch detail because there are some branches that don't need as many lieutenants. They need more senior folks. And then we want people, when they're senior folks, to have that combat arms experience, especially for a lot of the support roles like military intelligence and cyber. Cyber is the Army's newest branch, and I think a lot of the other services are in the same way. Stood up in 2014. And then really started bringing in talent through what's called a branch transfer. That being, so all of us that wanted to come into a cyber, or were told to come into cyber, had to fill out an application, get endorsements from your chain of command, your bosses, and it looked at your past performance. So if you weren't a top performer, if you didn't excel at what you're doing already, and you didn't have a computer background, whether it's computer science or like myself, I had a robust signals intelligence background, specifically digital network intelligence and analysis. Those are folks they wanted to bring in to stand up this new branch. As of a few years ago, we actually started commissioning people straight out of West Point into the cyber branch. So guys straight with computer science degrees, real smart, wonderful Americans who spend their entire college doing hackathons, programming, Python. They've got the background, they got the basic certifications, Net Plus, Security Plus, CEH. And then they start on and they can actually get onto keyboard and lead folks because they can talk and walk the walk that their folks do. The Army does also have a new program. It's a direct commissioning program where even if you didn't go through our Reserve Officer Training Corps or West Point, you have a computer science degree. Maybe you had some enlisted time, you're now using GI Bill to go to college. They do have a direct commissioning program where they can commission you straight into the cyber branch, into the Army, and you serve for a period of time. And really what we're looking for is software engineers. because that's a skill set that's hard to train some of us older folks in.
So they're basically anybody who doesn't join the military right out of like high school or something along those lines and goes to school and gets a computer science degree or software engineering degree, that is an option for them to go into. Okay, those type of billets.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I was just going to ask about that actually. Like, what if you had to go to West Point or ROTC or something along those lines?
So that's the normal route. There are other folks that will go to officer candidate school. So we do have a fair number of enlisted folks who have college degrees. I want to say that in my detachments, I probably had 3 folks with PhDs. And so it is not a typical education background I think you'd see in the rest of the military. The guys in the cyber field and gals are super smart, super educated. And really our job is to kind of point them in the right direction and then get out of their way.
So what is the most, like the biggest misconception about officer school that people are either disappointed about or pleasantly surprised about?
That's a good question. I wasn't really disappointed with much of anything on mine. I think there are folks that come in the cyber career field thinking that they're just going to be a highly paid person sitting on a keyboard and typing and left alone. And the expectation is that you are an organizational leader. Maybe when you're lieutenant captain years, it's a little L and a big T for technical. But as you go higher in rank, less time on keyboard, more time on mentorship and training. And it's a big L and a little T. So you still hop on, you need to know where your folks are going, but you're managing teams that'll either are going out and hunting adversaries or teams that are going in and trying to strengthen, harden, and hunt for adversaries in our networks.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of individuals, when I speak to them who are in the service, they're slowly like, I don't want to be sitting at a desk all day. I don't want to do this. This is why I don't want to go to officer school. I'm like, I don't know if that's necessarily true.
It's not. It's just like everything, right? We talked earlier about opportunities. There are opportunities out there,
Yeah.
So I think Jared did a similar deal. When I did expeditionary access operations, I had a beard, wearing man clothes, doing close access exploitation, and it's definitely wasn't behind a desk. And I was a major at the time. And like I said, as you have to look for those opportunities, take advantage of it, and be open to new things. And a lot of people they get in the comfort and I'm just going to sit at my desk, and that's what you're going to do then. And it goes civilian or military. You got to push yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a lot of desk jobs within the government, but there are those jobs where you will wake up at 2:30 in the morning to get out of bed and go do something because they're just that great. And and there are some within cyber as well. Certainly within the electronic warfare space, but yeah, for sure. You got to hunt them out, and you got to keep asking questions and just keep digging until eventually you find the right people and the right connections. Yeah. And it may take a couple of years, but it's definitely possible.
It goes right back to that reoccurring theme of what Jason already spoke about, is the people. Yep. People.
And it's what it is. It's culture. And I will tell you, unless you've put yourself in financial strain, the money alone is not worth it. It's the culture. You need to find good organizations, businesses, companies like ArcPoint, where the culture that's what gets you through the hard times. That's what gets you through the struggles. I just got done working till 10 o'clock and I'm waking up 2 o'clock to go do on a raid, and I have to be smart enough and put together enough to do some exploitation on whatever media so we can do other targeting. That's the people is what gets you through the hard times.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually heard, I am such a weirdo when it comes to certain books that I listen to, but Brene Brown is a author that I follow pretty closely. And she was describing a work experience when she was, a waitress at the time. And it's interesting when you come across people in high stress environments And I just bring this up because I think that ArcPoint does this really well as too. Everybody just jumps in. So if there's a sugar packet that's dropped on the ground and you have somebody come into the office and say, that's not my job to pick it up, then that's not who we want here. And that's not who you want on your team. You want someone who's going to come in and say, yeah, I already worked, 8-9 hours. And I know that there's this problem, but I'll be there at 5 a.m. to start again and start at the problem.
No, you're absolutely right. You want problem solvers instead of problem makers, and it's about energy. You put out energy, whether it's negative or positive, and that's the energy that other folks take on, especially with super smart organizations or missions, or whatever you want to call it. It's hard to kind of keep everyone going the right direction, and a lot of times it's you'll sit there and you'll push your head against a solution, whether it's, let's say, you're programming and just the coding isn't working quite right. Sometimes it just takes a fresh pair of eyes. Like, how many times have you written a paper? Oh, it looks great. You give it off and like, oh, this isn't even English. Then you relook at it freshly, or they read it to you. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Computers, exactly the same way. Sometimes it takes, what we used to call like a brain trust. There's another really good book I recommend to everyone out there. It's called Creativity Inc. It's written by the folks who started Pixar. And it's like, how do you promote creativity? How do you promote vision? And how do you manage a really smart and asset skill set without stifling all those, things that you really hired them on, which is to have that vision and be creative. And it's a great book just in general. And it's actually pretty easy reading.
What's one of the tips that stuck with you from that book?
Really, the thing that I took away is communicating a vision, because everyone needs to know where you're going. What's not necessarily like in 5 years we're going to be, but hey, you have some short-term goals, you have some long-term goals, and they're attainable, right? They're pushing the envelope, but they're still attainable. They're realistic. And everyone, especially if it's a smaller organization, needs to know what those milestones are. Where are we all going to? Because it's important that everyone has a stake in the success of the business, right? Or the mission. It's because you're going to have that pride, that ownership. If I feel like part of my identity is my organization, and if the organization does well, I'm going to feel good. I'm going to do well. Organization doesn't do well, I'm not going to feel good. I feel like I let the company down. Mm-hmm. The key is you have to have a culture that fosters that, so that not that your ego and who you are, I am, whatever company, but it's just that I have a personal investment in this company, my organization doing well, because it cares about me. I feel like I'm part of the organization, not just an employee of said organization, and it's military or civilian.
It's interesting. It's interesting how it goes back and forth between no matter what industry you're in, how true that is.
Yeah. Okay. Here's a question. Here's a concept that I heard recently. So talking about like goals and planning and like communicating that, but more specifically like personal life goals and like kind of life planning, like how you plan out your career. The concept was driving versus surfing, where before, like, if you're trying to drive your career, like you're planning everything out and you're just like, this is how it's going to go and I'm the driver and go forward with that, versus surfing, the concept, like you kind of have to go with the waves. Like a lot of life is luck and a lot of it is just kind of things may fall into place, but you're still going out there and paddling, doing the work and trying to catch the waves. How have you seen that play out in your career versus,
so I think
what you
you're
expected?
Spot on. That's exactly right. It's a little bit of what we kind of say separate Gumby, where you just kind of be flexible. So, a good friend of mine, as we're kind of looking at our careers back in the day, he brought up the point of you need to define what is success. So whether it's your personal life, your business life, your military career, whatever it might be, you need to define success. And that's going to change, because at some point, you're either going to switch jobs, switch roles, you're going to move, whatever it might be. You need to find success and say, if I reach this thing, however I get there, if I get to this end state, be successful. And the other part of it is you your career and where you go isn't going to be exactly what you thought. I never thought that after being in the military for 22 years that I'd be ready at that point to retire. I always figured I'm going to do my 30 years. I'm going to be some intel officer somewhere sitting, outside Fort Meade, retiring as an 06, whatever it might be. And I never thought that I'd have the personal struggles throughout the last 22 years with a couple of divorces and stuff. No one wants that. But all those things happen, I think, for a reason. And all those things, whether it was good or bad, it got me to being here in Tampa, working with a great company like ArcPoint, meeting, more folks, adding to my family. It's 70 some odd degrees outside and it's January.
Definitely doesn't suck.
It does not suck. And real quickly, it brings me up, thanks to the story I heard, and it was this Chinese farmer, and so he some folks came over his house, and he's like, hey, I saw your horse or your donkey, whatever, escaped, is not here, and that's really bad luck. He said, maybe. And then next day, guess what? Donkey comes back and there's 3 other donkeys tagging along. And I guess he made some donkey friends while he's out. So now he's got 4 donkeys. And was like, oh, that's really good luck. You got 4 donkeys to work now. He's like, maybe. And then next day, his son's out working with the new donkeys and breaks his leg. And of course, all the villagers come up and like, oh, that's some really bad luck. He's like, well, maybe. Because then the next day after that, the Chinese army comes through and say, hey, we're about to go to war. We're conscripting folks. He sees that his son has a broken leg. All right, well, we're not going to take your son because he can't fight. And they go off and they find other kids out of the village, young men and women. And so villagers, of course, they come back up like they always do, getting his business, say, oh, that's really lucky. That's really good stuff. He's like, well, maybe, and I guess the moral of the story is that whether it's something good or bad or something, a career path goes a different way that you planned on, it can be good or it could be bad, but you don't know. You just got to kind of go with the flow and take advantage of the opportunities that's presented to you.
Yeah, I actually had this kind of bite me in the butt, but I won't say how many years ago it was. I was working at FBI in a contract, and I put my notice in, and the position I was going to, I transitioned over there and found myself unemployed within 2 months of starting this new job because the contracting funding came through. And this is probably the first time in my life I have ever been like actually unemployed, not having a backup plan whatsoever. And it worked out because I actually ended up with NMEC, and meeting some amazing people and doing some amazing work there on some very interesting cases and getting a lot of experience that I just, wasn't expecting. It wasn't even something that was even on my radar. It was just like kind of felt like a happy mistake. And again, going back to people, the people that I had met at FBI, that was who had reached out to me and was like, hey, I have this position coming available. Are you interested? It's like, I can't believe the National Media Exploitation Center is wanting me to go work there.
And if that hadn't happened, if what turned out initially as a negative thing, with that contract closing down, if that hadn't happened, you wouldn't have gone to NMIC, appreciated the importance of digital forensics and how it's important for law enforcement, media exploitation, and gotten where you are now.
Yeah, I don't know if ArcPoint would be a thing if that didn't happen. So thank God for unemployment. No,
that's right.
Okay. Well, one of the things I did want to ask about, because when I was deployed, there were a lot of military guys that we would work with, and there were a few of them that were really interested in forensics. They were doing something completely different. Like they would come by and just basically drop stuff off for us because they got a task with delivery or whatever. They were interested in how they were going to transition their career into forensics. And so some of them eventually would actually come over and sit in the lab space with us and start learning and doing some of that work. So when you basically rode from Mosul to Fort Meade, you got nominated for this program. Was that something that you were pushing for to do because you knew you wanted to transition for that? Or is this an opportunity that came up and you're like, oh yeah, this is the time I want to jump on that? How did that transition work
So I actually started back in '05, to be honest with you, when I was the intel officer up in Mosul. And so I had half of Mosul going to Kurdistan. And we would come when we would do targeted raids or whatever, we'd always come across media, whether it's computers, CDs at the time, right? All kinds of digital media. And besides having two or three of my guys just sitting, at their desk for the next 24 hours, looking at, literally just watching the film or going through and clicking on every single picture, we soon realized that there's just there's so much information out there, and there's so much in all those information, and you would not think that guys in Afghanistan or Iraq a little more modern, that they wouldn't have computers and stuff. They do. May not be connected to the internet, but they well understand it, and computer technology, digital networks, digital information is out there. And we don't call it digital forensics, we call it media exploitation, right? MEDEX. And it was something that if you're even when I was a 2, I was a signals intel guy by background. And you look at either data in motion, you're trying to capture data that's going back and forth, intercepting it, right? Kind of what you kind of see in the movies, or data at rest. And that's just data sitting on a hard drive, sitting somewhere. And a lot of times, especially for both the offensive and defensive cyber operations realm, there's key things on those media that we need to be able to gain access to a network or an end station or wherever it might be, whether it can be a certain hash, crypto, keys, passwords, logins, network configuration files, all that data. Sometimes you can't get to over the network, right? Sometimes it resides on the computers themselves. So when I saw all that and saw the opportunities out there, happened to be that the G2 at the time, General Alexander, had come out, and we were kind of talking through how we maximize computer technology to optimize intelligence. And so as a push of going to cloud-based networks, we had some antiquated computer systems at the time that was shut down at 3 o'clock every night to data dump and sync with the main server. And that's right when we're doing our raids and doing our post intel, So when I was talking with him about it, he had mentioned that he was heading up to be the director of the NSA, and that he had this internship program, it's a joint DoD internship program, and thought I should apply. Well, the Army disagreed, said I had to get company command time first. I wouldn't be promotable. So went to Texas, did that, and then went up and did NSA the internship later on. But that's kind of where the bug started, was in Mosul in '05. And yeah.
Okay, cool. So talking about cyberspace versus cyber operations versus digital forensics, do you feel like there's a gap? Because the two are interconnected and dependent, but they seem like almost different disciplines. And you were talking about needing some of that digital forensics evidence, like the keys and stuff that you can grab off dead box type of systems, and applying that to offensive type of cyber operations. Do you feel like there's a gap between digital forensics and cyber that hasn't quite yet been bridged?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't know if it's due to, I don't think it's due to lack of appreciation from the full spectrum cyber operations side to the digital forensics or media exploitation side. What I think it's just more of a capacity piece of it, especially within the military. We've been just growing up our offensive cyber operations teams that do hacking, right, in plain English. And then our defensive cyber operations teams that just really try and prevent malicious actors to get into our networks and obviously protect our secrets. I think within Cyber Command and Army Cyber Operations in particular, we still look at a lot of other organizations to do that media exploitation for us. I know, like within Intelligence Securities Command, we have some organizations that do media exploitation through human-enabled operations. And I think a lot of the services are getting to the point where we have the capacity to start standing up. And I know the Army has some new organizations kind of going after it to bridge the gap, like we were talking about. Because like I previously mentioned, we can't always get to where we're going just by pure signals intelligence and streaming on net operations. Sometimes we require human-enabled, or a thumb drive to be put in that can do a callback and open the door from the inside. It's like breaking into a house. Sometimes you got to get someone inside to open the door. There's not always a way in from the outside.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I totally agree. A question on your opinion on private companies doing cyber operations. This is a conversation that I had years back, and they were actually looking at, possibly some policy changes within the government where you could, because right now it's all military law enforcement that is basically authorized to do actual like return cyber operations as a, kind of defensive type of thing. But they were talking about letting private companies or creating policy that would allow private companies to then basically like go after that. Have you seen any of that, talks of that? What are your thoughts on that?
So I would just say that anything I'm about to say is my personal opinion, not the opinion of the United States Army Cyber Command, or any of those organizations, right? I think it's the purpose and the intent is what really matters, right? Because it's a fine line between what organizations will call, or what the Cyber Command will call, for example, a Defensive Cyber Operations Response Action, a DCORA. For example, let's see, you have some APT that comes in, or cyber actor that gains entry to your network, whether it's for malicious intent or criminal, right? An organization, especially a civilian business or a company, has all the right to go in their network, identify where they came, clean their network, sweep it out, reharden, and then potentially, and this is where it gets tricky, like, okay, well then does that company then have the right to backstream up to where the threat actor or vector came from and prevent them from attacking again by diminishing their capability to do either it could be just espionage, just cyber espionage or industry espionage,
Yeah. Or even putting some kind of dropper or something to just gain access to see what's going on, because they know they're getting attacked, but they don't know what's going on behind, that in that attacker space, but just dropping something on their network that then gets collected, that then allows them to, basically start collecting intelligence on their attacker. That's another type of, scenario that is a little less damaging than actually going out and dropping a server off the network.
Right. Well, and there's, there's a lot of dual use stuff, right? And, if you look through different servers in Eastern Europe or other locations, you'll see that, they may not even realize that their server is a pitch point for some APT actor. So are you going to take down a server that also is host to, I don't know, some, hotel or something in Berlin? No, you're not going to.
So and for those who don't know, a pitch point is just basically like a threat actor will, tunnel their way through various networks, and they'll compromise a host that's owned by somebody else, and then they'll use that host to basically launch their attacks and either obfuscate who they are or just use that as a barrier to protect themselves. Yeah,
and I think you hit on a good point. It still comes to capacity. There's only a certain number of teams within Department of Defense or even Homeland Security. The department, brain fart
justice.
Yeah, right. But there's only so much capacity to go around, and they're working on nation state, non-nation state proxy organizations, not really criminal stuff, right? So it's where you have to define the question of, do businesses have a right to defend themselves? Are they going to be just receiving to and shoring and hardening up? And it's the castle to cannon, analogy back in the day. Oh, you have this little village. They build a little wall. Well, you build a bigger cannon. You have to build a bigger wall. Well, you build a bigger cannon. You build a bigger wall. Eventually, you shoot something back over to blow up the cannon, right? Otherwise, you're just building and building, and it's so complex because everything is a cost benefit, right? You can shore up your network and make it so secure that it's almost unusable.
Yeah.
Because you have to go through so many gateways or exit points. Your firewalls are so robust. Your protocols in place where every 5 minutes you have to re-put in your second key authentication. So I think it will be a point where, at least in partnership, maybe not to do anything destructive in nature, but to prevent future attacks. I think that will happen at some point. But again, that's just my personal opinion, not the opinion of the United States government, Army Cyber Command, Cybercom itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting concept, because of course the government is trying to do their best, but it is a capacity issue, and they are interested for sure in their own problems, protecting their own networks, and then of course trying to support all the companies that might be getting attacked. There is only so much capacity, and then if you've got like a major company like IBM or whoever that might be able to do something and resolve their problem in 3 months versus rely on the government that might take 9 months to a year and a half to get something done. It's an interesting argument and definitely an interesting concept.
And there are some really good articles out there from General Nakasone, who's director NSA and Cyber Command director or commander, talking about the need to partner with industry, partner with civilian organizations. And that means different things to different folks, obviously.
Yeah, and the solutions could be varying in degrees for sure, because it doesn't have to be something where you're like, oh, we're going to hack back and we're going to take them off the network and just like blow them away. No, it could be like you get access to their network and you see what's going on. Now you know who they are, and now you can send them a letter of like cease and desist, or put it in the press, or do something like take some other action to be like, hey, we know this is you guys. Like, the gig is up. Please stop.
Yeah. Well, a lot of this too is just information sharing. If you see APTs going after network A, and where the government want to make sure all the other like businesses or organizations, federal, state, know about it, and so they can take preventive action if we know what the exploit is that they take advantage of to gain access to the network.
I've just laughed because I would imagine that if Jared was taking anyone down, he would approach someone. The gig is up.
The gig is up.
Yeah.
This is professional way of notifying them.
That's right.
Hey, you. The gig is up.
The gig is up.
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like we talked through a lot of like different challenges and stuff like that. But in circling back to like the cyber operations and digital forensic space, what do you think the biggest challenges are that are going to be in the future that we need to worry about?
So I would say a lot of it is speeding up the information we get off of, whether it's a raid or, let's say, a detainee. And this can go from law enforcement to military operations. In a lot of places, it's hand in hand, FBI type stuff. It's getting them information off of that digital media in a timely manner. And really getting that information in a way where you don't have to have a lot of highly trained folks. We talked about capacity earlier, right? And we talked about, I know like in the Army Cyber Command, we put a lot of money into some of our folks, $200,000 worth of training. And there's only so many to go around. So anytime you have a tool or a capability that can maximize folks, a little bit of training familiarity. I mean, every high schooler now understands computers. They've all played with it. They know how to use Windows or a Mac operating system, right? They know how to look at stuff. So whenever we have devices or a capability that can speed that up or do some of the work for us, whether it's through machine learning or AI, and can automate some of those things, and then just give you, here's the information you're looking for. Here's a bunch of nonsense. You don't need it. Here's what you really need. Especially from a consumer of intelligence and information, that's huge because there's only going to be some more and more data out there, more and more stuff to pilfer through. And then the folks that need that, whether, again, like it's for law enforcement side or military side, the faster we can get it in the most accurate way is key.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where the whole idea of Atro was birthed from, is like more data, less time. How do we get you the results that you need in a quicker, shorter time frame? So,
yeah. Well, and what's really intriguing about the Atrio, not to give like a little shameless plug about your guys' device, is it matters too on because everything's so mobile now. Everyone's moving around and like we hit on, you'll find computers or digital media out in the middle of nowhere. Literally some guy could hypothetically be living in a motorhome at some state park or national park. And let's say you're doing, you just go and have a little knock on the door to have a discussion. You want to be able to, hey, we're going to look through that guy's stuff to even see if this is a valid hit or a valid, targeting. If you have the capacity to do it right there, and something that can go in your backpack, and it doesn't just do the imaging, it does imaging, exploitation all in one. That's key because there's a lot of solutions out there, and it's not just digital forensics. But in general, there's a lot of solutions that it's a hardware solution or it's a software solution. Not a lot are both, where it's a full kit, right? That's really a standalone. It provides everything you need. And so that's what's really, from a guy who consumes and has used all kinds of different products and softwares and everything else for the last, umpteen years. You make it easier. You make it so I can't break it if I drop it, which I will. And it's something that I can, within a matter of an hour or two, I can train one of my junior soldiers on how to use. That's a win in my book.
Yeah, that guy that you're describing who's living in an RV in a state park sounds real suspicious.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't trust him.
Yeah, that's weird. Jared, do you know anything about that?
No, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I think that it's going to be a constant challenge of trying to figure out, human capital and the amount of data that's coming in. It's not going to slow down anytime soon.
It's growing exponentially.
Yeah.
So, if you're out there listening to this podcast, you're still on because you have nothing else to do. Your company or your organization, just like the military, you have to be growing as fast with both capacity and capability that the data and the complexity of data and encryption is growing. And if you don't, you will fall behind and it'll cost you more to catch up than it does to stay on pace.
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of encryption,
oh boy,
I have a video for you.
Yeah. So
right.
let's introduce what Experts Reacts is.
Yeah. So we like to pull clips of either cyber operations or digital forensics or cell phone tracing or something like that, and just watch it through with people in the industry. And so I've got a couple of clips queued up, and
all right,
let's get into it. Yeah.
Not all the clips are bad. We'll probably eventually show someone that are like spot on, fantastic work from Hollywood.
Yeah.
We know
most of them are
cringeworthy.
Transfer node Culpeper, Virginia. Capture, good luck. 900.
Wait, I guess I should do an introduction for this. Like what?
Yeah. Let's do a scene setter.
Yeah. Okay, so this is from the movie Sneakers. It's a classic kind of hacking crypto movie, and basically they have this device that allows them to decrypt all of the government's, secret communications, banking, all of this stuff, and they're like, trying to figure out what it does and how to protect it and get it back, I guess, to the government. So this is where the scene they go through and they figure out like how they can decrypt all this stuff.
Instant encryption.
Yeah. Oops, wrong one.
Access. What about this? Federal Reserve Transfer Node Culpeper, Virginia. Capture, good luck. 900 billion a day goes through there. That'll do. Punch it in. Okay. You won't get in. It's encrypted.
What do you think he was punching in there?
I don't know, but the music is great.
Mother, that last contact.
I love how it just scrambles it.
Yeah.
So suspenseful.
Anybody want to shut down the Federal Reserve?
Huh.
Hey, don't screw around with that thing.
Carl,
It'd be great if that's how decryption worked.
National power.
I know.
You don't have one of those at your house?
No. I think this is still in the world of magic.
Here we come.
That's what it looks like too, the encryption.
Probing.
And it just fades into usable data when you get the key right.
His reaction. Wow.
Images.
God, no,
Yeah.
Carl, what else?
What else
Air
you got?
traffic control system.
They're all using the same type of encryption, and they're all connected to the same system.
Yeah.
Because I remember
Well, to be fair, this was in the 90s. So
well,
92,
in the
right?
2000s, working in government space, I remember how well all the networks work together. So this makes sense.
Yes, that's possible.
perfectly
you know,
like this,
it went
right?
back so far.
I mean, they work perfectly together now.
Yeah.
Hollywood could do what we
Janet
still
must have
can't do in
figured
the
out a way to
government.
solve those problems without the key, and he hardwired it into that chip.
Man, what if they change the key? Then that whole box is just completely worthless. Like all that effort.
Turn it off.
Yeah.
Ooh, this is an intense scene, though.
Can't look at it anymore.
All right. So we do have a rating scale, right? So we have sector 0 through 5, right?
All right.
0 being horrible, terrible, can't watch it ever again. Remove it from my memory. 5 being, wow, that was fantastic. Could not demonstrate it better than myself.
So I will give it a 4.
A 4.
And I'll
Okay,
tell
that's
you
pretty
why.
good.
Okay.
Right. So a unnamed organization had a bunch of bigwigs come through. I want to say this was in 2012, 2013, right in the heyday of doing these cyber things. And this big wig, some stars on their chest, came through and it's like, I want to see what you guys do. And so it was a bunch like that. It was a bunch of numbers and coding and I think it was JavaScript at the time, just a bunch of scripting. And we're like, right, sir, we're about to take down this bad guy's server. Click, done. And we're swimming through the network. And he's like, well, that was anticlimactic. I mean, I don't understand at all what you did. So unnamed organization spent the next like 2 weeks coming up with something similar where it was a fictitious, shall we call it, where you're swimming through the network and you actually can see this, you know, this move through these different pivot points. It's all three-dimensional and this imagery, right? And all right, so we're about to do it. And then you see the thing kind of go and disappear on the screen, you know, just so because they could understand that better because of like Hollywood like this. Completely unrealistic.
Did you play music, though, as it was happening as well?
No, I feel like they missed I don't know who, they missed that level of sophistication.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's what really made that scene is like the intense music in the background. All right, so 4, Jared.
All right, let me cue this one up.
Oh, you're not going to rate this one?
Oh, rating it, yes.
Yeah, you got to rate it.
Oh man, okay. Well, I really like that they were using a hardware device. They packed those keys in there, and then with the electrodes, they were like accessing the key by touching the right. I don't know, register pinout. I don't know. So, but that's cool. I appreciate that. And there's a lot you can do with hardware. So, yeah, I'll give it a 4 out of 5.
There you go.
I mean, I feel like given the time that they were doing it, it's probably semi-realistic because let's think of like how many people were actually on the internet in like the early 80s, 90s. So
not a lot.
I'm sure Jared has that stat somewhere in the back of his brain.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. All right. So what's the next one?
Okay,
oh, this is also from Seekers?
Yeah, I got a couple sneakers, and then we're have some our favorite designated survivor.
Gosh, so, you're obsessed.
It's the gift that keeps on giving. Okay, so this is also sneakers. This is further down the line, and this is where they're trying to negotiate an exchange, like getting the box back. They found themselves in some hot water. The government's after them. Somebody else is after them, and they're trying to get themselves out of trouble by like reaching out to a contact at NSA to try to broker some kind of exchange for, to take the heat off. And they're very technical. in their whole operation here.
But we make it our way. Unload the van.
We got these bandwagoners here, Wes. What do you want them?
Jared, this looks like your lab.
Yeah,
Thanks.
not far off.
Nice apartment.
Well,
I'm going to bounce this call through 9 different relay stations throughout the world and off 2 satellites. It'll be the hardest trace they've ever heard.
2 satellites.
This will measure stress in the voice of the
Not really
patient
that hard to
on the line.
trace
Not
back.
as accurate as a
Okay.
polygraph, but for today's purposes, it'll do.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
a polygraph over the phone, just relying on voice. Totally legit. It's gonna work so well.
That's how a polygraph works, right? Did I do mine wrong?
I mean, basically.
Hi, Director Ops. National Security Agency, Director of Operations, please.
Let's go straight to the director of operations.
I'm sorry, I forget the number. Could I please have Director of Operations? It's very important. Try research. Give me research. It's an emergency.
At this point, I'm sure that no red flags would be thrown, and they would be like, "Oh yeah, this caller's
C-Tech
legit."
Astronomy.
That person needs to be fired.
It started the trace.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have had to. I was out doing a job, and I did have to call the security operations center because it was like a weekend and it was an emergency, and I just needed to literally be put in touch with somebody, and they were so unhelpful. They wouldn't do anything for
Are you
me.
interested in
No.
C-Tech Astronomy?
I'm interested in all kinds of astronomy.
True.
Cute.
We've got the satellite in Tokyo. These guys are good.
They're so fast.
I need to know if you're someone who can make a deal.
Go on.
Can you deal?
Yes.
True.
You're across Transcom. You've got about 20 seconds, Bish.
If I come in with what I know, can you guarantee my safety?
Do you have the item?
No.
15 seconds.
Can you guarantee my safety?
Where is the item?
Can you guarantee my safety?
5 seconds.
Yes, I can guarantee your safety.
Bish, he's lying.
Liar!
Hang up. They've almost got us.
He's lying.
Hang up, Bish.
He's lying. He's lying.
Hang up.
Oh, intense.
So close and so precise too. Like when that dot's moving across the screen, it's like,
Yeah.
a centimeter from getting busted. I'm sure there's no
Gotta be a
latency
way to
there.
cut a deal with
I think
those
if you
guys.
looked up, you'd see it running through the power lines.
Yeah.
I think
How does that-
I think all us older folks have probably actually connected to the internet that way.
Yeah. I thought the polygraph over the phone was
Oh,
hilarious.
priceless. Yeah.
Yeah, because those things are so ridiculous in real life anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, they definitely have their place for sure, but just true or not true over the phone is, I don't know what you're even doing.
It's
there.
like the main actress there when she just says unbelievable. It is 1,000% unbelievable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what are we gonna rate it? What's the scale?
So I'm gonna give it a 2+3, somewhere in there. The believability was a little much to swallow.
Yeah, I agree. 2 being like cringeworthy. Yeah, that was a bit over the top.
Yeah. I'm
Music's
gonna
still on point though.
and music was there. I'm gonna go with the 1 though because I've called for help and there's no help.
Jared's like,
nothing.
I actually needed
Feel
help
bad about
and
this.
nobody's helped me.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a big ask. It was just like I can't remember specifically what the question was, but
I'm
there's
just impressed that they knew what I haven't known for working with the NSA since 2006. That it had a front-facing public directory that you could just call up and they would connect you anywhere within the building.
Yeah, that seems realistic too.
Yeah.
All right, this clip is back from Designated Survivor. They are in the White House and they are suddenly under a cyber attack, and their incident response is just on point.
Like a power surge. Backup generators kick on any minute.
Network's down.
Yeah, I got nothing. White House line is dead.
This isn't
All the
good.
cell phones aren't
What
working.
is that?
Same network, by the way.
From the grid. No power surge. Looks like we got a real-time intrusion into the White House network.
I'm on Fort Meade. NSA thinks it's just a sniffer, some kid poking around our electrical grid.
NSA's wrong. This is no sniffer.
Agent Ritter, that's the Oval Office.
Is no sniffer.
I'm trying. It won't work.
Section 2 is still completely dark. What's happening?
My computer's out.
Yeah, mine's out too, sir.
Nothing. Mr. President, I need you to step away from your computer.
Man, they killed all my
What's
computers.
going on?
The flicker of death.
The White House has just been hacked.
Take everything.
There's a lot of chaos going on there.
I mean, they were on it though. Like, they did not skip a beat. As soon as like the power went out, they're like, "This is no sniffer. This is an intrusion." Like,
Right.
on it. Everybody's running around grabbing laptops. Cell phones aren't working because obviously the cell networks are, connected to
Multiple intrusions.
right, and everybody's got their
One.
cell phone. I suppose,
Everybody's
is
going
curious.
down.
Actually, I don't know. Maybe in the West Wing they do. They probably do all have cell phones in the West Wing.
So what are we rating this one?
So I'm gonna give it a 4. I was excited. I felt the blood flowing. It was good music. The energy felt good. They were responding to the intrusion. The backup generators kicked on. They secured all the mobile devices and laptops in case there was someone on the inside. Went through a wireless exploitation or vulnerability. They were spot on. Excellent work.
But they just shut the laptops, and there's no Faraday bags or anything that they're dropping these things into, or they're just
I'm sure that was in the next scene.
Oh, right, yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
They ain't got time for parody bags.
They just snap the laptop shut. It's give me that.
Well, that turns it off.
Well, they were already off. Did you see the screen?
Yeah,
Oh,
we had the
yeah,
flicker.
yeah,
We had
yeah.
the flicker of death.
Yeah. I mean, they had all the exploits, just freaking just nuked everything.
But it was only just a kid messing around, poking around the network.
Yeah,
Sniffing.
I'm gonna give that a 2 because the only good thing that came out of that, well, the acting. I mean, the effort, that was great, but
Yeah.
the only thing that came out of that was the line that this is not a sniffer. That's my favorite part.
That definitely
That's
did
what made
knock
it a
down.
2.
Yeah.
This is no sniffer.
All right.
All right, Amy, I have one more. This one is for you.
I live under a rock.
So it's Designated Survivor, and
Oh, God.
also it's later on. But the guy basically, I don't know that he necessarily hacks into the into SIPRNet, but he gets on SIPRNet, and then he creates basically a cat card, just like that, for the person that's trying to break
definitely
in.
want to see this scene.
So it's
This
just
is this is gonna be.
yeah.
Can we
'Cause this
hire
is-
this person?
This is the cat card process and how it goes in real life.
I wish it would go that easily because it's taken me sometimes months.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not surprised.
Especially the SIPR tokens that you have to use now.
Oh, I know. Yeah. So the frustrating thing, the only reason why Jared is making fun of me about this is because when I was working at NMEC, I would have to facilitate all this stuff, and people would make fun of me about how intense I was about when they needed to show up at the cat card office. It's you need to be there at 6:50, wait for them to open the door, immediately get in there, sign it, all this, sign in and then do it. And the frustrating thing is I always had the worst luck because I would show up and then everything would be going fine. There'd be 5 people ahead of me. They get to me oh, sorry, the system went down. You're going to have to come back.
Yeah.
But we're only open Tuesdays and Thursdays between the
Exactly.
hours of 2 and 3.
And they're gone for lunch.
And we also have a 30-minute lunch break in between there.
All right, here we go.
All right.
So this is the nefarious actor. So this is also from Designated
does look
Survivor,
suspicious.
obviously. Yeah. Just gets
Well, you got
in,
this fake surface.
I was going to say, you can't do anything on the surface.
plug that right into SIPRNet.
Oh, no issues? Or is this
No. Although I wouldn't be surprised if this was actually how it's done in some places. Good thing he's got all that memorized.
oh, here's this clown.
I like
yeah.
the security validation,
He's monitoring SIPRnet. He's all over it.
Oh, yeah.
Werner.
It's Chuck. Get to Hannah's office now.
We all know this is not how any of this happens.
Access card generated just like that.
What is
It's like a 5-minute pit stop,
Okay, remember the
You can get on with
hack
your day.
that was used to deliver the machinist?
I wish.
Yeah, that attack destroyed half the computers in the West Wing.
Also left behind a serious digital footprint. Now, working under the assumption that our trader was responsible for that hack as well, I've been keeping an eye out for that same code in case it was used again. Our trader just accessed SIPRnet.
The Pentagon. What for?
I don't know. He's not in the mainframes. Looks like he just wanted to create an ID.
An ID for who?
Oh, this guy.
I was gonna say, is he gonna ask to take his sunglasses off?
Oh, he did get that. Yeah, that's
That was good. That was good.
Access card works. It's that easy to get with the Pentagon.
Who knew? Ooh. Also, music spot on all these clips. Felt like my heartbeat was racing with that one. It's really getting into it. No, I wish it was that easy.
Has that been your experience, like getting access cards made? It's just like, you stop off in the side office, you plug in, boom, 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 you're on SIPRnet, and then somebody on the other side of the city can.
Every section can have a designated like SIPR or CAC card maker guy or gal, and it just went by that quick. It's absolutely.
There's got to be a way for them to modernize that process. It's just the most. Jared is trying to trigger me right now by even bringing this up because it's such a frustrating process. Like, why? Why is it like that? And let's not even talk about the fact that, there's like 3 systems that locations that you can go to, and the systems are always going up and down to do them. And then also it takes like at least 3 months to get the paperwork signed and approved.
All part of the experience.
Yeah. And that comes from, I'm sure, from like it being such a global network, and like you have to get these things made in just really weird places, and they've got really like old tech or just strange one-off tech that they've got to work with, and so the compatibility, I'm sure, is just a nightmare for that system.
Absolutely.
There's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
Let's make one.
I like that from the original hack, the guy got the digital fingerprint, if you didn't catch that, a serious digital fingerprint, and then he actually was like using that to monitor network traffic or access or something. I'm not sure how that digital signature correlates to that guy like logging in from a surface, but
absolutely,
or something
interesting. You could use the same code to do multiple things, multiple purposes, so that's good.
Yeah, so I'll give that a 3.5 for you pulled the digital footprint, or created this. We'll assume that he created a signature from whatever the exploit was, and then he was using that to monitor his system.
Well, maybe he pulled it because like the first episode of the podcast we did, he was also logged on, probably with the same cringy surface. Maybe they had something there during the first attack.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, but hey, I'm with you. It's a 3 to a 4. Just with the, the thought process of one great network administrator, security guy who's actually monitoring the network. That's good.
By himself, though, in like a closet.
So that's a little realistic, right?
Because this is the sock. This is the janitor's closet.
Well, it is post big attack and designated survivor. Maybe that's all they had left.
Maybe.
You don't know.
Maybe.
Had to set up an emergency facility somewhere. Yeah. Somebody's apartment. Hannah's apartment, apparently.
Yep.
Good. Well, Jared, I'm just going to remove your little block here.
Oh.
Sorry. Bye.
Disconnected.
See ya. I'm also reporting you for abuse.
Well, I left a serious digital footprint, so I don't go away easily.
That's right.
Yep. I just use your magic little hardware box to purge it from the system immediately. Jason, thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast. Really appreciate it. For those of you that are listening, any references, any materials that Jason has referenced throughout the podcast, we'll make sure that is in the notes down there. And as usual, if you like the video, please subscribe.
Great. Thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun, and excited to see what's next for ArcPoint.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See ya.